Hey there, welcome to another video by the Bench Coders, and today we are going to create a header with a sticky nav. So I'll show you the designs which we are going to code today. You can see we have this design and we are going to create the header part of this design. So basically this top part from here to till the search icon, and I want to make this header a responsive header as well as a sticky header. What do I mean by sticky header? I mean that once you scroll, the header should stick to the top of your web page. Wherever you are going, you will be seeing the header. Or also just note right now, as you can see, this header does not have a background, but in our code we'll be adding a dark color background just to ensure that once we scroll, we have the differentiation between the underlying content and the header. Okay, so let's start. You can see the design in this, and then we have products, TV, music, support, find, store, these navigation links, and then we have a search button, and then we have a heading, we have a background, and then a basic learn more, basically a hero section for the page, and then we have a lower navigation and a small absolutely positioned video content. Instead of video content, we'll be using an image placeholder for now. We can always place the iframe later on. Okay, so this is my basic setup. Again, just like last time, I have HTML here, and then I have my CSS here. This is my global CSS, and all the variables are here. I'm using SASS, so I'll be using SCSS style provided by the SASS, and all of the coding which I'll be doing, it will be going in the style.scss file. And some global styling will be going to the global CSS, and if you're not familiar with SCSS or SASS, then you can look at the CSS code in the rightmost corner here. So this is the style code which you can see. So any code which I write here, it will be converted here and you can see it. Okay, so right now we have a blank page with the very basic setup done for us. So let's just see what that setup is right now. Okay, so in our global CSS we have a container, and then we have basic border box which we use throughout our website and code, and I'll be using two fonts, Roboto and Righteous, and then I have a container class. So I have given it a width of 80 pixels and max width 1200 pixels, which I might overwrite because as you can see in this design there is no max width, so we might just remove that. And you can see then we have margin, auto, and padding. This is a basic margin which I have in place, and then I have a clear class which I'll be using in some places. Okay, so let's start. So first start with the I'll be creating the whole header part, but in this tutorial we'll be just doing the sticky navigation part, navbar part of this header. So first I'll give basic comments here. So since this is going to be a header section, so I'll just give comments to ensure that we have this header section separate. Okay, so this whole section I'll be wrapping this in a header wrapper. So I'll be using a header wrapper. I'm using Emmet plugin for my HTML generation. You can write your HTML manually, or you can see my videos on Emmet. So first thing we have to design is the navbar part, and I'll be wrapping this whole thing in the header wrapper. Then I'll give this whole thing. Okay, so after this we have to style this. So I'll be giving a basic wrapping div as navbar wrapper. Inside navbar, as you can see, this whole thing from Apple logo to the Finder store, this is going to be one list, and then this is going to be one specific form, and this is going to be a button. Okay, so let's just create a navigation, and you can see this is these all are li, and this will be a separate form. So I'll give this a class of top nav, and inside this how many LIs? 1 2 3 6. Okay, so we have 6 LIs. I'll just use random text home for now, and then we have a search form. So I'll just give this a search form. This is going to be a form, and inside this form we'll have an input, and then type equal to text, and then also we'll be having a button. Now let's just say submit. Okay, so let's just make sure that we are giving proper encapsulation for these. So since navbar wrapper up till this point, so we want navbar wrapper to have ul top nav. Inside this we have 6 LIs with text of home, and then we have a sibling to navbar wrapper. No. Inside navbar we have ul top, and then we have top nav, then we have a sibling form search. Okay, so I'm missing something. Nav. Okay. Okay, so we have I gave it. Okay, so let's just expand this. Alright, so as you can see, we have header wrapper, then we have a navbar wrapper. So this navbar wrapper wrapper will be encapsulating all these things, and then we have a UL called top nav, and then we have a form which has an input, and then we have a submit. So for now we'll be using submit placeholder text. We can just use i.fab.fa_apple. Okay, so one more thing to note here, I'm using font awesome, so we can use font awesome classes here. It's pretty simple. You can so what you have to do is you just have to include your font awesome file and give the class to any I tag. So let's just see how it's looking in the browser. So as you can see, this text is coming here, but the color is white. Why it's white? I don't see any reason why it should be white. Okay, let's see. So let's just define one more thing to note, this whole header has to be 100% height of the view. So what we are going to do, first we have to define our body and HTML to have height 100% and position relative, and this is to ensure that everything is working nicely across all the browsers. And then we'll have our header wrapper, and since this is going to be 100%, minimum height of this should be 100 vertical height. Okay, so let's see. And then we need a black background here, so I'll be using my variables here. As you can see, I have bg color as black, so I'll use that color. Okay, so now you can see this is 100%, and then I have my black bg color. Also, one more thing to note, you can see that we have this image in the background, so let's just define that as well. Let's just define a URL here, and all my images are inside img, so I'll be navigating to ./img/bg.jpg, and then my bg color will be the fallback, and then I'll define a background size of cover. This is basically to give a okay. So now you can see we are just taking shape here right now. So basic layout is there, and then now what we have to do is style the navbar. So let's move to the navbar part. Okay, so navbar wrapper will be my base, so any CSS which I'll be doing will be relative to navbar wrapper. Okay, so inside navbar I have a UL called top nav, and in this top nav I'll be okay. So in top nav I want all the LIs to be inline block, so Okay, so let's just style our top nav first before allies. I don't want any margin or padding on the top nav. We'll be using allies for that. So all my allies should be display inline block. Okay, let's see how it's looking. Okay, now you can see it's taking place, and I want my, let's just give it top and bottom padding to our top nav. Just maybe let's just give this to li. Yeah, let's define it on allies. Okay, let's just first measure this. Let's just measure this using our scale tool. Okay, so height is 47 from the logo, so I'll just use 40 pixels as the paddings for top and bottom. Let's just see how it looks. Okay, so now it's looking something similar to what we have in the design, and as you can see we have bold text here. So the font weight is looking just fine. Let's just change the text to what we have, product TV music support. So find store. Okay, now as you can see we have Apple logo here as well. So what we are going to do, we are again going to define a FAB Apple. So this is the class for Apple icon here, and also this has to be a link. So let's just encapsulate this inside a tag, and let's just indent this. Let's see how it's looking. Okay, this is looking fine, but why it's coming like this? Let's just inspect element and see what's happening over here. As you can see, this is our UL, and okay, so our class is wrong. It should be FA Apple. Okay, so let's just style our let's just give it a class to our navigation called navlink, and then let's just style navlink inside our top nav. Top nav is our UL, so let's just style this top nav. Yeah, so we want this to be display inline block again, just like our allies, and we want this to inherit whatever color our allies having. So let's just give them inherit. Okay, so one more thing you might have noticed, this font size is a bit high, so let's just increase the font size to 18 pixels. Let's just see how it looks. Yeah, this is looking just fine, but the font size of the Apple icon is a bit more, so let's just give this a bit more font size. I think we should use 36 pixels. Maybe we can just measure it using scale tool. What's the basic height for this? Yeah, it's 30, so let's just see how 36 pixels look. Yeah, this is looking nice, and just to make sure that it's a link. Okay, it's a link. So now you can see we have something similar to what we have in our design. Okay, so now it's our turn to style this. search bar. Okay, so for the search bar we have a search form. Okay, so let's just start with the search form here. So let me just scroll down on the CSS so you can see. So this is the part which we have dealt in now: body, header, wrapper, navbar wrapper, and the navbar top nav UL. Right. So it is pretty easy to understand SCSS, and I hope you guys are following what I'm doing in the SCSS part. You might not need the CSS part if you observe what I'm doing. So search form. Inside search form you can see we have an input tag, but the thing is this input should only be visible when we hover over on the form. So let's just make our input by default input type equal to text. By default what we want is to be display none, but let's just comment this for now because we want our styling to show us how the input form is looking. So right now as you can see it's compiling. So yeah, so it's coming as a white input text, but what I want is input input element to have a white border and transparent background. So let's just define a border of 1 pixel solid and give this a hash FFF as a color, and I want this to have a border radius of 5 pixels, and let's see how and then we have to define the background as hash 00. It's border radius, right? This is looking okay. Inside search form also let's just increase the font size to 18 pixels. Okay, so font size is looking just fine. Let's just increase padding a bit for the text field. Give this a 10 pixels padding all around. Okay, so this is coming along nicely. Now you can notice that our ULs are coming on the top and our form is coming at the bottom, but what we want is our UL to be on the left and our search form to be on the right. To do that we have to use display flex. We are not using floats here, we'll be using display flex here. So we want our header wrapper to have a display flex. So what this will do is this will change the styling of these from block to display flex. Let's see how it's coming along. Okay, so now you can see our header wrapper is this, and navbar okay, this is wrong, right? So in our navbar wrapper I want display flex. So let's see. Yeah, so now you can see it's coming along nicely, but now our header search form is on the left side. We want this to be on the rightmost corner. So what we have to do is we have to define flex property called justify content, and that property will be used. There are a couple of properties. Let me just give you an example. Center is one of them. It will center align all the text. As you can see it's coming in the center now, but we won't want this. What we want is all the space to be in between these two elements, so we'll define it as space between. There you can use space around, but the space around will add more text, remaining space on the left and the rightmost of the first and the last element, but we don't want that. So also we want a transparent background. So on our search form, let's just see how it's looking. Okay, maybe we can use a bit dark color. 0 comma 0 comma 0 0.4 should look fine. So let's just use 0.2. Let's just use 0.1. That should look okay. Yeah, so now you can see, and then let's just define a color for the text as well. So we want white color and bold text again inside the input element. Font size bold. Okay, so font size bold, and then let's just see. Okay, that's looking nice. And now we can just align these elements. Now since we added padding 40 pixels on the top and the bottom for these elements, so what we have to do is we have to give the same padding on our search form. So let's just give a padding of 40 pixels. Let's see how this looks. So now you can see these are aligned properly. Let's just give a bit increase the size of this one and change this to FAS, and this should be search. Why? Because it's showing the, yeah, so now we have the search icon, something similar to what we have here. Let's just style the submit button just to ensure. Let's just change this to button type submit. Type equal to submit, and we don't want any border, 0 pixels. We don't want any background, transparent, and we want some padding in this. So we don't want top bottom padding, we just want left right padding. So let's just add 20 pixels as padding and see what happens. Okay, yeah, I forgot to add color here. Let's just add white color. Yeah, and let's just increase font size to 18 or maybe 20 pixels. Yeah, so this is coming along nicely. As you can see, we have this text here, but by default we want this to be display none. So let's just uncomment our display none and see. Okay, so this is gone now, but what I want is as soon as I hover over here, I want this to be visible, my input box to be visible. So let's just give this a cursor pointer. And on hover over the search form, we want our input to be 100% width. So let's just do hover. So since I'm doing this hover inside search form, not inside input or button, so we'll be having hover over here. You can see here how this turns out. Hover, and then we want to style the input inside the hovered over, hover. So it will be something like search form colon hover, and then inside I'll be doing the input, and in this input what we want, input type text as well. So equal to text, and we want this to be display block. Let's just change this display none to width 0 and opacity 0. Let's just add some transition and opacity 0, and let's add a transition. Let's say 0.4 second all, and then let's just restore the width 100% and opacity to 1. Let's see. Let's just see why this is not coming along here. So width and opacity are 0. Our hover is not working. Why it's not working? What is the generated code? Search form hover and then input. Okay, input type equal to text. Okay, so as you can see, I made a mistake over here. Search form input. So instead of dot input, I made it a class. You can see the generated output. Search form hover input. So let's just change this back and see. Okay, so now you can see this is coming along nicely, but again we are having a glitch over here. So how we are going to fix that? So by default this had a width of auto, so let's just give this a width of auto. So now you can see it's coming something similar to what we wanted. Let's just decrease transition time to 0.8 seconds so that we can actually see what's happening over here. Yeah, so now you can see this is basic transition which we have here. So whenever you will be hovering over here, you can see this. Now this is done, but I want to add a dark background to this nav bar. Right now it's not responsive. We'll be making it responsive in a minute. Okay, so let's just go back to our Navbar Wrapper. Okay, so in Navbar Wrapper we have to define a background, right? So since it's wrapping everything inside this, so let's just give it a background of. So since we are using black as the color, so I'll define a RGB color, and let's just use opacity 2 and see what happens over here. It's not looking that nice. Let's just use 1 as opacity. 1 as opacity is it's just fine. So I think I'm going to decrease this even a bit more. Yeah, so 0.5 looks okay to me. And now the main part which we were doing, that is to make this a sticky navbar. So to make this a sticky navbar, so as you notice at the very start of the project, I asked you to make this position relative, and that was for the two situations. Suppose you just wanted this navbar to be on the top. Okay, so you might have used absolute positioning, but since we want this to stick to the top of the page no matter where you are scrolling, so we'll be using position fixed here. So we have to define our position on the nav wrapper, and since position fixed is already relative to the screen size, it doesn't matter whether where the relative or anything else is there. It's not something like we have in absolute, so we can directly use it without worrying about our parent positioning. So let's see how it's looking. Okay, so right now I don't have any content to scroll for, so let's just copy this header and create something to scroll. Let's just copy this header and let's create something which can be scrolled. So now you can see it's being scrollable, and we have some sort of light dark background, and then we can have our search bar as well. Let's just make sure that this is always having a width of 100%. Why? Because as you can see there is a glitch with this flex property here. It's coming here when we don't even want that. Okay, so this is looking okay, but I think this top padding of 40 pixels is a bit too much, so I'm going to decrease that, and let's just decrease this to 30 pixels. And same thing on our search form as well. Yeah, so this is much more sensible in my opinion. So now as you can see this is sticky. If you want to see make this more prominent, this background, you can just increase this background to something like 0.5 and then check this whether your sticky is working or not. So for now let's just keep this at 0.5 so that we can easily check that. Okay, so Now this is done. Let's just make our navbar responsive. Okay, so now we are defining our media queries. So add media. So I'll be defining media breakpoints on two resolutions. One is going to be 960 and other is going to be 720. So media max width, first is going to be 960 pixels and then the second one is going to be our 720 pixels. Okay, so let's just see how our page is looking. Let's just comment out this refreshing thing. Okay, so let's just test this on our mobiles. Yeah, you can see this, it's not looking good. So let's just increase this resolution to something like 800 or 900 is a pretty good indicator. So how things are going. So you can see we are having some issue here in below 960 pixels. Maybe even above 960 we have some issues. So let's just change this to 1024. Why? Because below 1024 we are having a glitch on our top navbar. So below 1024 I am going to do two things. First, I am going to decrease this these navbars font size. Okay, and then I'm going to fix the size of this input field. So now first we have to style our navbar wrapper. So let's just start navbar wrapper, and in navbar wrapper we defined our font size, I believe. So okay, so in top nav inside navbar we have our font size, so we'll be defining, and let's just decrease the font size to 16 pixels. That's a sensible font size in my opinion. Okay, so font size is decreased. Let's just decrease font size for the icon as well. So that was nav length. So let's just decrease the font size for nav length, and let's just change this to 24 pixels. I guess that should just suffice. Yeah, 24 pixels. Okay, looks okay. So same thing for this. So we have to start style a search form as well. So again, font size, it's going to be 16 pixels. Again, input type, any input type, I want font size to be of 16 pixels. Let's just and we have to decrease the padding as well. So padding we have to remove from, no, we don't have to remove padding here, I guess. Okay, so what's the font size? Let's see, the font size is 20. Okay, it's being overwritten. Okay, search form button type submit. Okay, so let's just be specific in that case. Okay, so now you, as you can see here, we have search form type button overriding our media query. So let's just make sure that our media query is not being overwritten by that. Again, why we are having some issue over here? Input type equal to submit. Okay, so this is button actually, right? This is not input. Yeah, so now you can see this size has been decreased. So I'm going to fix this size to 100 pixels. So I'm going to style the input type equal to 100 pixel, input type text width 100 pixels. Okay, so let's see. Again we are having this issue, so let's just decrease this size to 60 pixels, 80 pixels. Let's just test this with 80 pixels. Now again we are having this same issue. So how we are going to fix this? Okay, so you can see we have paddings over here, so let's just decrease our paddings on the search form. On the search form we have padding 30, so let's just decrease these two. Padding, top bottom padding 30 pixels is fine, but we want less padding on the padding. In left corner we want a little bit less padding. So on our allies we have, as you can see on our top nav we have padding, right? In our allies we have padding. So where is it? You can see we have padding 30. So top bottom padding 30 we can still keep, but on the left right padding 30 is a bit much, so we'll just decrease this to, let's say 10 pixels. Yeah, since the resolution is going to low, maybe we should decrease this. And navlink we can have a bit more padding on the left right as well, so we can just keep the default padding here. What's happening over here? Let's just see. So let's just ensure that is padding left is 30 pixels. Maybe we are having some glitch. Yeah, so now you can see this is looking much better than what we had. So now now we'll be doing media query for 720 pixels. So in 720 pixels, what I want is, we don't want to show the search form, and we want these products to come in a inline block. So basically let's just hide this form and make sure that these are coming on the separate lines as a block, and this icon should be in the center, so this will be a block as well. So inside 720 pixels we have our Navbar Wrapper, and in Navbar Wrapper what we have, in Navbar Wrapper we have top nav. So in top nav we have our allies which are display inline. If you can remember from my code, top nav ally we have defined as display inline, but now we want each of them to be display block as well as everything which is inside our Navbar wrapper, right? So everything which is inside this wrapper, right, all the ULs and anything, I want this to have text line center. You'll see why in a minute. You might notice this is decreasing, but I don't want this actually. I want this top nav to be 100%. So again, let's just ensure our top nav by default is 100%. I forgot to add that initially, so I had to add somewhere else, I believe. 100%. Okay, our Navbar wrapper had to be 100%. This doesn't need to be 100%. Yeah, so our top nav width. Okay, in 720 pixels our top nav has to be width 100%. Why I want it like that? I don't want it to be display flex. Now I don't want our search form to show up in this, so I'm going to give it a display none. Also, there is no point in keeping this as a sticky nav in a mobile resolution. So what we are going to do is we are again going to make our nav wrapper position static, so that it will be just like a static navigation link. So since we copied this 2 times our header, as you can see, let's just remove this. We are no longer going to need that. Yeah, so now you can see this is coming along nicely for all the small to all the large resolutions. It's not breaking anywhere, right? So that's it guys for this video. We have done our fixed nav. Let's just make sure we have done what we wanted to. So I'll just bring back my copied header section to make sure that this is actually sticky in nature in the desktop. Okay, so now you have a scroll bar and you can see, so this is, as you can see here, you can just notice once I'm scrolling it's going up and down. So this is now a sticky nav bar. So let's just make sure that our design is what we wanted to do. So you can see we have product, TV, music, navigation, and then we have search bar. So we have product, TV, music, navigation, find, store, and our search bar. So that form is not shown here, but I have added it just for the case of usability. Okay, so our navbar part is done. In next video I'm going to show you how to create the other sections of these of this header, as well as how to make them responsive.